It's been a year of turmoil and devastation in many parts of the world, and the threats from militant groups has been rising. This year, I've travelled to 3 countries battling an Islamist insurgency: Nigeria, where Boko Haram militants have conducted numerous attacks and taken girls hostage; Iraq, where so-called Islamic State has declared a caliphate; and Afghanistan, where daring Taliban attacks are on the rise just as foreign troops leave. So the big question is, are we living in a more dangerous world than we did a year ago? Well, we'll be discussing that in more detail shortly, but first, look back at my assignments in those countries. I'm on my way to Bagram prison on the outskirts of Kabul. After 2 years of negotiation, I've finally been promised access to this maximum security jail built to house Taliban and other high-risk insurgent detainees. The facility is located just outside the massive US military-controlled Bagram Air Base. Last year, the Americans handed over control of the wings containing Afghan-born prisoners to the Afghan authorities, but US forces still oversee the cell blocks housing foreign combatants. My guide was General Farooq Barakzai, the Afghan army commander in overall charge of this place. In this room, we met some of the 65 men slated for imminent release by the Afghan authorities, despite strong objections from the United States. The US military said Mohibullah was a Taliban coordinator who conducted bomb attacks. They said he was caught with a firearm, insurgent propaganda on his mobile phone, and tested positive for 4 types of explosives. Mohibullah told us he was 16 and a simple shepherd from Helmand province. We have no way of knowing whether he was telling the truth, but after a year in Bagram prison, he certainly hated the Americans.
I hate them because I'm here for no reason. Of course I hate them. I want to ask them, what's my crime? If they told me clearly what evidence they had against me, I wouldn't mind if they kept me in prison for 10 years. But no one is asking about us. I have spent a year far from my mother and father. Why? What's the reason, I ask?
Despite their pleas of innocence, the US military is adamant these were all dangerous men. But just 3 weeks after we filmed them, they were released from Bagram prison amidst bitter political recriminations. Boko Haram. Until April this year, few had ever heard of these ultra-violent Islamist militants or their charismatic leader, Abu Bakr Shekau. But a mass abduction of over 200 schoolgirls changed all that. The slogan, "Bring back our girls," became a global rallying cry.
We failed them once in not being able to abort their abduction. We can't afford to fail them by being indifferent.
Borno State was once known locally as the home of peace. But that nickname now seems bitterly ironic. I'm on my way to the northern city of Kaduna to meet a family who left the region 7 months ago. They've joined the 650,000 other Nigerians the UN says have been internally displaced by this conflict.
Kawai mutane ba su zato ba, ba su tsammani ba, suka ga mutane sun zo daga gurare daban, suna kashe mutane, suna kamawa, suna yankawa. Za a je kasuwanni, akwai mutum 100, mutum 1000, mutum 2000 suna cin kasuwa da wanda suka zo daga wurare daban-daban sun taru a wuri daya.
Tell me what happened at your school.
Gaskiya sun zo da suka zo da ranar sai suka fara harbi, kowa sai ɓoɓɓoye akwai abu a fuskansa haka baki, sai suka fara ƙwanƙwasa ƙofa aka fito suka fara fasa ƙofofi haka suna fito da yara suna yankawa, wasu kuma suna ɓoɓɓoyewa. Kuma sun ga dama ga ka a gaban sun Allah bai za su yanka ka ba sai su wuce ka su jawo wani, amma dukansu fuskansu a rufe yake ba wanda ya buɗe fuska, kuma gaskiya suna da yawa sosai. Dan a gaban ka ma za ka ga an kwantar da mace an mata, sai da irin in kana da sauran tunani ka irin faduwa na wani ma ka suma, sai a zo a iya fama ruwa wasu su dan taimake ka a ɗauke ka a gudu da kai, amma gaskiya ana ma yara faɗi a makaranta.
How can a country have a future when it's losing its next generation? At the Khanki refugee camp on the outskirts of Dohuk, children are chanting, "No Iraq, no Iraq." At camps across the region, every day hundreds of desperate and exhausted Iraqis are arriving to flee IS militants. In searing heat of more than 50 degrees, they wait, unsure of what will come next. The Yazidi minority group have felt the full force of IS militants. Many of the survivors are separated from their families. They tell of relatives kidnapped and sold into slavery. Refugees are spilling out into every corner of this city. This ancient religious sect have lived in northern Iraq for thousands of years. Now, advancing Islamic State fighters have told them to convert to Islam or die. In an abandoned building, they remember one of their dead. 19-year-old Darwish was killed at an IS checkpoint as his family fled their home near Mount Sinjar. When they came under attack, the family was separated. And your sister's still missing? شمرا خابر كر قواس نزان مزاد كدري ما قمزو خلاص كن تلفون قفل كرين أم تخاذو خشكا خببين أم قلحش خشكا خدكن خشكا ما بقلق الرجانة أنت ما في بيشي ماكي ما في مبينن يكش كوكا أو بتني البردستي داك عمابو ما في مزو ببينن زوج دستيوان خلاص كن زو بينن أو بتني مابو بعدك بابي دمي 30 minutes drive away, they took me to meet their sister-in-law, who was injured in the firefight. Layla showed me her wounds.
هنجي قودني بسكنة هنجي بوما إشارة هالكرين قو بسكنة ناسكني تيمن هاكا تيمن سكني بعد يزبر باما وهردي وقشت بانا وزلامي مشكي بزمان بوشكي الكلمة بو سينجي مدا والرهني مدا.
Many villages like this are now eerily quiet, abandoned. Even if they could, people don't want to return. Their homes have become the front line in the war against IS. While the international community wrestles with how to respond to the threat from the militants, Iraq is on the brink of becoming a failed state.